morning, Mayank. Welcome to Microsoft Digital Conversations. I'm Shrikant Kothari. I lead internal IT for Microsoft in India. Work very closely with our stakeholders to drive digital transformation as a whole. And thank you for taking the time once again to come down, speak with us. With all the buzz around AI as a whole and generative AI specifically, is really to get your insights on how you're looking at AI in business and AI in the healthcare space. There's a lot of exciting work going on already, but that's essentially the idea for keeping AI as the theme to kickstart, our new series called Microsoft Digital Conversations. So, and feel free to go ahead, give a quick introduction of yourself, Mank, and then we can dive straight into our questions and into a bit of a Q and A.
Thanks, Shrikant, for a introduction about the series and a warm welcome. This is Mayank Bhargava. I'm responsible for technology at Fortis Healthcare, and my mandate is here as a Chief Information and Digital Officer to kind of look at the digital technologies and see how do we actually improve the overall patient experience, the clinician's experience, and deliver much better care for our patients.
My first question for you is, what are your thoughts on AI and how disruptive is it for your business?
See, I think AI as a concept, as a technology in the healthcare side, potentially has a lot of. I mean, it has a lot of potential. For the problems that we've not really been able to solve so far because of the limit of how humans can actually interpret the information, how much data can they process, and I think that's where AI can really actually help in assisting the clinicians to find better solutions, better procedures for curing some of the ailments that have been plaguing the mankind. But at the same time, I think there is a bit of caution that really needs to be considered alongside that this may not be a panacea, and I think we'll always have to be balanced with a lot of deliberation constraints to see where actually we want to go ahead and leverage it. But for sure, this has the potential to disrupt the space and actually help in addressing some of the problems that we've not been able to solve.
No, I think great point, Mayank. And in sort of continuation, while the buzz has been tremendous, what do you really see changing in the next 2 years? I don't want to necessarily say 5 or 10. I want to think two, just because of the pace at which things are changing.
Yeah, I think 2 years in the technology world and then with AI coming in, I think seems to be a very, very long time because things actually change overnight. But I do see that, AI actually making better inroads on some of the more standardized things. For example, reading the images. The human structure is fairly similar, and if you have a lot of data available, a lot of images available in that site, perhaps AI can actually help in uh, getting to the end outcome faster. But how reliable, how accurate would be is something that is yet to be seen. Of course, machines are learning at a much faster rate as compared to what it was earlier. But for some of these relatively simpler use cases, which are more standardized, more homogenized, there is a better chance of an uptake, for AI to actually make a contribution. But again, I think the reliability of information is something that is going to be of paramount importance. You don't want to be making a recommendation or a suggestion for a patient, where human lives are involved, basis what the machines are telling us. So, I think even when there are some results that will kind of emerge from the AI side, I think it will go in with some bit of a skepticism to see is this accurate enough? Is this clinically advisable to be, mentioned for the patients?
Sure, sure. No, makes complete sense. And a lot of our thinking is sort of also on that track. Um, One of the other challenges is really around skills, right? And what sort of skills already exist out, within organizations like yourselves, or what kind of skills do you need to develop, right? And lots of industries and organizations are competing for people with the necessary AI skills, right? So where do you see yourself today, and any suggestions there for other healthcare industry leaders to figure out what kind of skilling map do they need to build internally, and this is of course within our IT environment and IT organizations.
Yeah, I think skill gap is perhaps the biggest challenge that is there in this space, and I think for the healthcare providers, this is I think the problem is even more acute because healthcare so far. On the non-clinical side has not really been considered as much as much more technology advanced as compared to some of the other industries, for example financial services or e-commerce, and many others. So on while on one side, on the clinical side, I think healthcare has made very rapid advancements, and you have the best of the technologies which are supporting the clinicians to actually deliver better care, be it robots or automatic, or automated surgeries that can be carried out. Some of the more complex procedures can actually be carried out by some of those machines. But when it comes to the back end side of it, the non clinical side of it, they've been found wanting on the technology capabilities as well as the skills which are available within the organization. So at this point of time, most of the healthcare providers are either looking at building some of these capabilities in house or kind of working with different partners who can actually bring in these capabilities or supplement what the organization is looking for. The first one, though preferred, but is perhaps more challenging because it's difficult to attract that kind of talent who would be willing to come in and work in a healthcare setup, unless that particular organization has already created a mark for itself that they're doing, they're at the bleeding edge of technology, and they're doing really cutting edge stuff. So this is something that, we are also trying to build, or kind of create an outward perception for attracting the right kind of talent. And at the same time, while we are building this kind of a talent pool, we are, exploring partners who can actually work with us, completely in a partnership mode, co-create some of these products or solutions that could be of value for us, within our organization, and of course in a broader healthcare setup. But yes, at this point of time, I think this the talent shortage which is there with the healthcare providers, for AI and related technologies, I think is a significant challenge.
What are your thoughts on responsible AI? And you're in the sort of domain where you're dealing with a lot of personal information, of individuals. So, what are your thoughts there from a responsible AI standpoint?
Yeah, I think the debate which is there around the responsible AI, I think is very valid, and honestly, I think the jury is not out on how this should be, how it should be kind of governed, how or what really kind of falls in the ambit of that you could do and what you should not be doing, even if you can. So I think that part is very much applicable for us as well. And given the sensitivity of the patient data that is there with us, we are very clear and very conscious that we do not want to make that data, as a playground or any of the external entities to kind of train their models and stuff like that, because that is a data which is kind of entrusted by the patients to us. It still belongs to them. It still belongs to the patients. So without their consent, that is, it cannot be, even in an anonymized manner made available to any external entity to work with. So that kind of makes it even more challenging for us to kind of figure out ways on how we can leverage this data to still provide better care for our patients, and yet taking care of this aspect that we're not really uh, making unethical use of that information at any point of time. So we'd rather lose out on a particular opportunity instead of kind of taking any of the missteps, which is not right, for our patients, from a clinician standpoint, or for the group. So the journey might be a little slow for us, but for sure, we would kind of take all the steps that we think are right and completely ethical, from the patient's standpoint. So the use cases that we would select today or tomorrow or whenever we do will always be kind of governed by this north star, that anything that we are doing is something which is taking care of the rights of the patients, the rights of the clinicians, and then only we kind of move forward on that side, and we'll be all right if we don't really do some of the things which some of our peers or the competitors might do. But we want to be definitely on the right side, on the patient side, whenever we kind of adopt AI for any of our internal or external processes.
No, makes complete sense, man. Well, that is all I had. Thank you for taking the time, and I sincerely appreciate all your thoughts and ideas.
Thank you. Thanks, Shrikant.